Big fan of Tyrone Magnus, like I've been watching him for a hell of a long time. Though I found what he said here interesting. Nerdrotic called this a hand-me-down, and this is one of my biggest issues with all this kind of mantle swapping for race swapping and all that, and I feel like it is a hand-me-down.
Yeah, me and him disagree with the whole hand-me-down things. And
what is going on YouTube? 0088 here, and today we're checking out Nerdrotic's Captain America 4 is Doomed video. There's a lot of criticism about this new movie. There's a lot of reshoots happening at Marvel. There's a lot of course correction going on with, you know, Trump winning the election, apparently. I don't know if it's to do with that. Apparently they had a test audience and a test screening, and they just kept saying it was trash. They didn't like it. I heard some rumors that maybe it was too based on identity politics and, you know, Sam Wilson being black and all that. But anyway, let's see what Nerdrotic's got to say, and I'll give my take on it and my thoughts. And basically, was it a mistake letting Sam be Captain America? Was it a mistake letting him take up the mantle when he already had his own mantle? And should Bucky have been Captain America? Would that have been a more interesting story? Let's watch it.
Nerdrotic.com.
The Captain America trilogy from the MCU is unquestionably its best, and a good argument could be made that it's the best superhero trilogy of all time, featuring...
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, it was really good. The first film is a bit but it was still pretty good compared to some shit that's out nowadays, especially. The first half of the first film is really good. The second half is a bit rushed. The second film, Winter Soldier, do I need to say anything? Winter Soldier was epic. Civil War, well, when you have Tony Stark, Iron Man in there, Scarlet Witch, you got flipping Black Panther in there, you got his introduction, you can't go wrong with Civil War. People will say it's not as good as Winter Soldier, but it was basically an extra Avengers film. So Captain America had one of the best trilogies for sure.
And despite my major problems with Endgame, including Steve Rogers f***ing off to the past and sitting out every major American event for the last 50 years, antithetical to everything Steve Rogers as a hero was all about, the trilogy holds up and it reminds you of better days. Okay, to be fair, considering who Steve Rogers f***ed off for, there is a justifiable argument to be made. Anyway, after all that, despite the last two Captain America films completely centered around Bucky, leading to what we thought would be a redemption arc mirroring what happened in the comics, didn't. Instead, Steve Rogers handed his shield to Sam Wilson, leading to one of the dumbest decisions, of which there are many Disney Marvel could come up with: a Captain America sequel without Captain America.
I said it at the time, and if you go back to my Endgame review, I said Sam Wilson taking his shield over Bucky. I kind of hinted it, but it was kind of fresh then. I didn't want to rip anyone's band-aid off, but I knew what they were doing back then, but I didn't really say it that much in my review. I mentioned it a bit, and I knew it was a diversity thing. I knew it was a race thing. They did it in the comics, and I made a video about it when they did it in the comics before they even did it in the films. When they had Falcon take up Cap's mantle, I was like, what are you doing? He's already got his own superhero identity. He's already got his own mantle. He should be making that great. Would it make sense for Tony Stark to drop his Iron Man mantle and suddenly be Captain America? Why would he do that? He's Iron Man. You know, like, it's like saying Falcon is just not good enough as he is. It's like he's just trash. So he needs to have the coattails of a white man that's already made great in order for him to be great, and he's not even living up to that. That's what it feels like, especially when you're basing it all around race. The TV show was around race. You didn't even make it about that, oh, Falcon is just the perfect man to be Captain America. You didn't even make it about that. He hasn't even got a super soldier serum. You skipped over Bucky. And the reason why Bucky makes sense is because Bucky does not have his own identity. The Winter Soldier isn't his superhero identity. That's an identity he needs to get rid of. That's an identity he needs to bury. And there's no better way for him to do that than to take up the mantle of his best friend that died, you know, or that got old in this case, you know, in the comics he died. And he needs to do that for his redemption. He has a reason for it. Like, a lot of people make this stupid ass, I'm going on a rant now because I keep saying it. A lot of people make this stupid ass hope and say, oh, no, Bucky can't be Captain America because he's done too many evil things. People won't accept him. People won't. That's the whole point. That's what makes it an interesting story. I want people to not accept him. I want people to be like, he's not my Captain America. He killed people. He's a murderer. He killed my family. And then he has to live with that. If Falcon has to take the mantle, allow him to take it and make it his own by calling himself Captain Falcon or American Falcon or something like that. where he's kind of mixing up the mantles together. So he's still building up his own mantle while he's also taking the responsibility of being the new superhero leader of America. You know, he doesn't need to take Captain America's name and drop his own. Let me make this clear. Now you're probably saying, but people take mantles all the time in superhero stories. Even before the woke Marvel, you had War Machine temporarily took up Iron Man, but that was temporary. I shouldn't even bothered mentioning that. You had all the different Flashes. I'm trying to think of ones before SJW Marvel, before All New, All Different Marvel, because they just did it to everybody then with Amadeus Cho Hulk, Riri Williams, Ironheart. They called her Iron Man for a short period of time. I don't know if many people know about that. That's how dumb it was. They realized how stupid it was. So they started calling her Ironheart. They got Lady Thor. They got all these like mantle swaps that happen in All New, All Different Marvel because they were all new and all uncreative, too lazy to do anything good. So they just made people take up other people's mantles and thought that would work somehow. As if the character underneath the mantle wasn't important. As if Bruce Banner, Tony Stark, Thor Odin's son, as if the person underneath the superhero name didn't matter, when that's probably 60% of what makes the superhero. Like, I can't even think of many people that have taken up other people's mantles. It's not even, that doesn't happen that much. You can't really use the Green Lanterns because the Green Lanterns is a whole corps. You know, there's loads of Green Lanterns. You know, it's like a whole army, basically. That doesn't make sense. That's like saying a firefighter can't have multiple firefighters. But at the end of the day, the number one thing is when a mantle is being taken, even the SJW Marvel mantles, they don't have a previous identity. The guy that becoming Falcon after Sam in this story, the Hispanic dude, I don't know what his name is, he's in the comics as well. He didn't have a previous mantle. He was just a guy, you know? Same with John Walker. Even he was just a army guy, you know? And even his sidekick, he didn't take up a Falcon mantle. He had his own mantle. His sidekick, I can't remember what his name was, the black dude in Falcon Winter Soldier. I like those two guys. Now, why John Walker? It's fine for John Walker. It's fine for the Hispanic dude because they don't already have a mantle that they're building up to drop, you know? Falcon had to literally drop his mantle and become Captain America. That's embarrassing. And you can't see it because from the outside world looking in, we know that Falcon is not really a big character like that. He's a kind of like a C tier, B tier kind of character. But then so was Iron Man. Iron Man was a B tier character at one point, but now he's A-lister because of Robert Downey Jr., because of the movies. Falcon could have been like that too, but now he has no chance to be like that because you thought it's not worth building up his Falcon mantle for him to become something as great, something to stand toe-to-toe. He should be standing toe-to-toe with Captain America and Iron Man. Not, he can't be good enough to get to the point where he can bring up that name. All these people that are for diversity representation, they're lazy. They don't give a fuck about it. Rather than writing really good, amazing stories to make Falcon more of a legitimate A-lister character, they'd rather just drop his mantle and give him a white man's one, completely diluting what it means to be Captain America. We want Steve Rogers in the suit. There's no one that can replace Bruce Wayne. There's no one that can replace Peter Parker. I mean, yeah, you got Miles Morales, but he's never really going to replace Peter Parker. He's better off having his own name. There's no one that's really going to replace Superman because Clark Kent. There's no one that can do it. Especially when it's just a diversity hire. We know what you're doing. You're not doing it because it's an epic story. You're doing it because you just want to just do a black version of that thing. That's where the story starts and ends.
Quite frankly, the only memorable thing about this show, a meme.
You've got to do better, Senator.
Oh, and John.
You've got to do better, Senator. I keep seeing that shit, man. They're trying so hard to make him seem like Captain America, like do his speech, but it's not hitting the same, man. It just seems bootleg. It seems bootleg, and you really want to associate black people with bootleggers and say that's progressive. It's just so. What they should have done is made a Falcon movie if they really wanted to. I know what you're thinking. You're like, Falcon movie wouldn't have. No one wants to see Falcon. People want to see Captain America, but he's not Captain America. It's still the Falcon. He's just wearing Captain America's clothes. So why can't you just make a movie about Falcon? It would have worked. You just have to fucking make it good. And they never thought an Iron Man movie could ever work. They never thought that could work because he was B-list, he was C-list, he was C-tier. But they went and did it anyway. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Terrence Howard got paid more than Robert Downey Jr. I mean, yeah, he's a bigger star, but Robert Downey Jr. was the star of that movie. The second lead got paid more because the titular character is not even that popular. But what did Iron Man become? Iron Man at one point was more popular than Spider-Man for a short time until the Tom Holland movies start coming out. Hell, he's probably toe-to-toe with him right now. Falcon could be like that. War Machine could be like that. All these sidekicks, if they're allowed to shine on their own, they could be great, but they're not allowed. They have to take up other people's mantles. If we want to talk about diversity, even flipping Captain Marvel, Spectrum or whatever her name is, she had to drop her name. She was Captain Marvel before Brie Larson's version of Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. Monica Rambeau was the original Captain Marvel. They should have done her movie first if they really cared about representation and diversity, but they did Carol Danvers' version, right?
Initially titled Captain America New World Order, this was quickly abandoned because that was a term used by conspiracy theorists, or as I like to call them, people who correctly predicted events. It was retitled Captain America,
or, you know, WCW, NWO, New World Order.
A Brave New World, and shot in 2023 and then reshot in 2024. Almost entirely, and not because of test screenings, it didn't even make it past the internal screenings at Disney Marvel, because Captain Black Falcon America Brave New World needs to do Wakanda Forever numbers just to break even due to its reported $400 million budget.
See, I don't know why he says Captain African America or Captain Black Falcon American. Is he just referring to how everyone was calling him the Black Falcon in the show? I always thought that was stupid because in the show they were like, it's Black Falcon. And then he was like, it's just Falcon, man. It's just Falcon. Are they trying to reference something? No one calls him Black Falcon until that show called him Black Falcon. Now everyone jokingly calls him Black American Falcon. And it's just like, wait, what? And they've made it about identity first. So now anyone that talks about it is going to refer to him as a skin cone because the show made it about identity in the first place. It's just like, you don't want people to reference skin, but then you keep talking about skin color, and then you're wondering why everyone's talking about skin color and referencing skin color. It's like you put yourself out there, and then you get shafted anyway. It's just stupid. Black Panther never got referred to as African Black Panther, Black Man, Black Panther, or whatever. Like, never did it happen. War Machine never got called Black War Machine. They called him Black Captain America, Black Falcon, because they made it about his skin. And now everyone that criticizes this calls him that, which is trash.
But Sam was Captain America in the comics. My point exactly. Sam Wilson became Captain America in the mid-2010s, being a part of the ill-fated all-new, all-different Marvel. And
exactly, and that's the issue. It was trash when he did it in the comics. He was Captain America around the time Winter Soldier came out. That's when they first released Sam Wilson's Captain America. That was when everything started going woke, basically. Look, they've even got Coulson in there from the movies. The movies had already started taking over at that point. It's just, he didn't need to do that. In the comics, the worst thing you can do is have someone drop their mantle and take up a new one. Would Spider-Man drop his mantle and suddenly start being Captain America? Why? Why would he do that? Lady Thor and Miss Marvel at least make a little bit more sense, even though I think they're trash as well, because they didn't have previous identities. They were just normal people. But he already had his own identity. He had to drop it to take a white man's one. It's so weird. It's kind of like when Eminem signed 50 Cent, right? To his Shady Records or whatever he signed. He signed 50 Cent, right? Eminem did. Would it have made sense for Eminem to just be like, right, I'm retiring now. Your name is 50 Cent. Everyone knows you're 50 Cent. But I'm a bigger star than you, 50, so you should take my name. So then Eminem is no longer Eminem, and then 50 Cent is now known as Eminem. How dumb would that be? Like, as if 50 Cent would even want to do that, you know? Now, you can argue that Captain America is an ideology, it's a symbol, and all this kind of stuff that someone needs to carry. Why won't Tony Stark drop his Iron Man mantle and take up Captain America's mantle? Why won't Spider-Man do it? Why won't anybody else do it, you know? Now you can say, oh, they won't do it because they're not like tight with Captain America like that. They're not best friends like that. Even if they were, they wouldn't do it. Let's be real here, you know? Like even in the comics, when Dick Grayson took over the Batman mantle for a short period of time because they needed a Batman to strike fear into the criminals' hearts, it didn't last very long, did it? Maybe in the universe it might make a little bit of sense. No one's gonna buy that because people just want Bruce Wayne as Batman. They don't want no second tier Dick Grayson as Batman. And Terry McGinnis makes more sense as Batman Beyond because Bruce Wayne was old at that point and Terry McGinnis didn't have a previous identity. It's easier to do mantle swaps when the person doesn't already have a previous identity. We know Dick Grayson was Nightwing. We know he was Robin. It just feels cheap. It cheapens the Batman character and it cheapens Nightwing's character. And nobody has been cheapened more than this than the Falcon himself. You think you're bolstering him, but now he's just been cheapened. That's the problem with all this crap. I don't have a problem with Miles being a new Spider-Man, but he shouldn't be called Spider-Man. He should be called, I don't know, Arachnid or the Spider or Spidey or something like that. But Spider-Man is already taken. It's just lazy and it's cheap and it makes them stuck in the previous hero's shadow. And I don't know why you would want that if you care about diversity, if you care about representation. Why would you want to be stuck in the white guy shadow if you're trying to bolster these black characters? To me, it makes no sense. As a black man, that's what I'm saying. I might not have the exact same argument as Nerdrotic, but I actually care about representation. Nerdrotic don't give a fuck. Nerdrotic, I'm pretty sure he probably just wants the white Captain America. I don't know what Nerdrotic's feeling about this. I mean, he makes some good arguments here and there, but me personally, I care about representation. I think it's important. I don't think it's a number one thing. I think it's probably about number 8 on the list of important things to do when you're creating a franchise, when you're creating a brand, when you're creating an IP. But I think it is important still. I think people do care about representation. People will like relatability. People like seeing themselves. It's true, but it's not the be all end all. If you're going to do it properly, right? And make it make sense. Because in the long run, eventually they're going to reboot the MCU. Eventually they're going to start again. And we're going to have the white, blonde hair, blue eyed Steve Rogers back. Falcon ain't going to be there. Is Falcon's legacy going to be just taking up the mantle? Is that what he's going to mean? He's not going to be like Blade, Black Panther, Luke Cage, War Machine, all these heroes that have their own identity. He's just going to be the one that takes up the white dude's one. That's going to be his legacy. Is that what you want?
All different Marvel, an era that gave us race swaps, gender swaps, characters randomly turning gay. It gave us Ironheart, Captain Falcon America, Nazi Cap, and Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, or as better described, Carl Manvers. That led to Marvel editor Axel Alonso getting fired. Meanwhile, over at DC, they were doing their best to destroy their characters, and the industry has yet to recover.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
And instead of learning from that real-time market research that involved actual comic fans, Disney Marvel, in their infinite wisdom, decided to bypass decades of brilliant storytelling that sold in the millions to adapt books that sold in the thousands and were eventually canceled, including a lot that featured Sam Wilson's Captain America.
Like he said, it was trash when it happened in the comics as well. Bucky had already done his stint. So I guess maybe if Steve begged him, you could say there's a story about that, but they didn't do it for those reasons. They did it for diversity purposes. They were trying to replace everybody with race swaps. They did it with Lady Thor. So they were like, well, we've got a Thor. We've got Miss Marvel, that's brown. We've got a Asian Hulk. We need a Captain America. Oh, why don't we just have Falcon be it? He knows Captain America. They're close. So we can make him a black version. It's all just identity politics. That's it. That's the reason why they did it. Not because it made sense in the story. It was natural. They just pushed it on you in the comics. And they've done the same thing in the movies, skipping over Bucky's potential epic redemption arc where everybody hates the idea of him as Captain America and he has to prove himself. There's no better way than for him to fix his bad deeds by him being a new Captain America, because people will be more aware of what he's doing. Like, how is he being the White Wolf or whatever you want to call him, or just being Bucky, gonna fix his bad deeds without, people not knowing who the fuck he is? He's being a bit covert. He's doing underground operations with the Thunderbolts. How's that fixing bad deeds that he's done with people not even realizing? People will see it if he's Captain America, It should be like a thing where he really doesn't want to do it, but he's got to do it because Steve asked him to do it and he owes him one, and after saving his life so many times. That's how it should play out, and it could be such an interesting arc.
Now, I was also told by my friend at Marvel that while the reshoots did improve the film slightly, it's still going to be the most expensive polished turd ever made. But this is what happens when you play the game of identity politics. And considering recent events, that era is not just gone, it's long gone.
That's what I said in my previous video.
I got a question. Why give the second black costume superhero in Marvel Comics history, the Falcon, hand-me-downs? How is that progress? Personally,
That's what I'm
I
saying.
prefer the Falcon rocking a couple of Uzis. I can see him leading the Avengers. I have no problem with Anthony Mackie. I think he's been really good, and quite frankly, he was the most charming and charismatic thing on the stage during that whole presentation of
That's what I've been saying, Nerdrotic. Preach. He's actually saying some things that don't sound racist for once. I don't think Nerdrotic is racist. I'm just fucking around, but I'm just saying that this is my argument all this time. The last thing he's saying.
Comic-Con. And let's not forget that Captain America 4 is being released during February of 2025, Black History Month, so they can repeat the success of the Black Panther marketing because Disney Marvel has no shame. Let me ask you this, what's a better story, having Sam Wilson as Captain America in some weird Wakandan hybrid Iron Man suit fighting random Hulk villains, or loosely adapting Brubaker's work and having Bucky as Cap fight the Red Skull? Well, it looks like one of those stories is going to lose a lot of money.
The Bucky story would have been way better. They should have just had a separate movie for Falcon. They just need to make it good. It's at the end of the day, it's the movies that make these characters great. Blade is the perfect example of this. Before Wesley Snipes became Blade in 1999 or whatever it was, 1998, nobody knew who the fuck Blade was. Who the hell is Blade? No one knew who he was. Who knew what the hell the Guardians of the Galaxy were? No one knew who the fuck they were. The movies make them huge. It would have worked if they did it right, if they actually put effort in, actually put talent in, actually put people that care about this stuff in. They could have made it work, but it is what it is.
And one of them might have made some. Now, I don't think Captain America Brave New World is going to be as big a flop as, say, the Marvels, because quite frankly, it has better actors. And as always, I could be wrong. Maybe it makes $1 billion, and I hope it does because it's going to need to. But based on everything we've heard and seen so far, it's not looking good. Now, concepts like passing down the mantle have worked many times in the comics, even with legacy characters like Sam Wilson, mostly because we knew Steve Rogers was coming back. But changing a major legacy character solely based on identity never works. So as Hollywood is forced to change,
that's the issue. They made it a black thing. It should not have been a black thing, you know? The movie could still be good. They've done a ton of reshoots. Apparently they've taken the identity stuff out of it from what I've heard and made it more just a cool action flick. We've got Red Hulk in it. That's always going to be cool. It might have the tone of the Winter Soldier, which will always be good. So we'll see how it does.
Maybe they'll listen to the wise words of my good friend Clifton Duncan. While this was meant for multiple industries, I want you to listen closely to this one, Disney Marvel. If artists stopped focusing on what makes the classics problematic and started focusing on what makes the classics classic, there'd be way less slop to watch, read, and listen to today. If Captain America
facts.
Brave New World does indeed
facts.
underperform or even flop at the box office like I suspect it will be for this one reason. It doesn't have Captain America. If you want to get some engagement on X, I mean, aside from typing Miles Morales is Miles Morales, try this. Steve Rogers is Captain America, an objective truth. I don't make the rules, I just make the observations.
Nerdrotic.com.
I was just checking out Tyrone Magnus's reaction to Nerdrotic's video reactception. I'm reacting to Tyrone Magnus reacting. So big fan of Tyrone Magnus. Like, I've been watching him for a hell of a long time. Though I found what he said here interesting. With him reacting to Nerdrotic. He also thinks the movie's not going to be great, and he thinks Falcon taking over Captain America's mantle is for woke reasons, but he has an interesting thought process here, which sounds a little contradictory, but I just wanted to go over what I think. Nerdrotic called this a hand-me-down, and this is one of my biggest issues with all this kind of mantle swapping for race swapping and all that, and I feel like it is a hand-me-down.
Yeah, me and him disagree with the whole hand-me-down things, and I get it. He, him getting it in the comics was not a great period. But I just didn't look at it like that. The hand-me-down ones seem more like the ones where they're like, not the hand-me-down. I don't want to call it a hand-me-down because there's tokenization and there's hand-me-down. And then there's like, like you'll watch something and they'll use an obscure one time in the comics person of color that was this, and those feel more like tokenization or hand-me-downs.
The thing is, Falcon Cap is a one-time person of color thing because Steve Rogers comes back as Cap. They always come back, regardless of race. Even they always come back as the original character always comes back. If you've got a new Superman, Clark Kent will come back. Dick Grayson was Batman for a short time. Bruce Wayne came back. They can't get rid of the main guys that were the characters for 80 years. It's too late to try and do something new now. And if you are, you have to really like triple down and stick to it. But these comic book companies, they just don't have the real estate for that, you know? They have to always go back to the Bruce Waynes, go back to the Peter Parkers, and go back to the Steve Rogers.
This one doesn't. Just feels like, because if woke never existed, I don't think any of us would be saying, oh, this was a hand-me-down. We wouldn't. We'd just be like, yo, they kind of threw us a swerve because we thought it was going to go to Bucky, but he actually gave the shield to Sam. Okay, let's see what happens.
The reason why we would say it's a hand-me-down is because Falcon already has an identity. It's kind of like if you gave it to Iron Man. It just, why? You know, it doesn't make sense why he would suddenly stop being Captain America, you know? When he's already got his own identity, he's already got his own brand, you know? It just feels weird. If there was no such thing as woke, and we lived in a world where we didn't care about race or skin color or something, we would have other issues with it. Woke is just an add-on to all the other issues with it, you know? Just like when Dick Grayson became Batman, people thought he was weak, he was lame, he looked skinny, the suit was baggy on him, they even drew it kind of lame. And even though they're both white, people still had their issues with it. I think even when Bucky was Captain America, people didn't want it for that long. I mean, they understood the storyline, it made sense for story purposes, but eventually they wanted Steve Rogers back. I don't consider mantle swapping a hand-me-down if the character that's getting the new mantle never had their own identity originally, you know?
Think about that, right? Because no one was saying, you know, like tokenization or hand-me-down type rhetoric when like Green Mile was Kingpin. We thought it was different, but we're like, yo, man, he's definitely...
Michael Clark Duncan playing Kingpin is not the same thing. I mean, I have talked about how race swapping is hand-me-downs within Hollywood, within acting and stuff like that. For example, when Michael B. Jordan is Johnny Storm, and I say that's a hand-me-down for Michael B. Jordan, it's different from when I'm saying Captain America giving his mantle to Falcon is a hand-me-down to Falcon as a character. The actor and the character are two separate entities, you know? Like, it's a hand-me-down in real life because we're getting the leftovers of an already established white IP, white character. I said it in my video about race swapping and diversity. My final thoughts, my final wording, my final quote was, don't make iconic characters black, make black characters iconic, right? Because when you make an iconic character black, what that's doing is you're still bolstering the identity, the iconography of the white character. You're still bolstering their identity. And eventually, 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, 9.8 times out of 10, the white character comes back to take up his identity, and all the black person's done is bolster it up more, you know? That's why I don't like race swapping and when it comes to iconic characters. Like if a black person plays James Bond now, it might be good, it could be fun, especially if Idris Elba does it. That could be a fun version of James Bond. But a white guy is going to come in, and the white guy is always going to be more true to the original because that's how he was always depicted for the longest time, for the past 80 or so odd years, you know? So a black guy doesn't stand a chance to make it his own. Now, if we've got a completely obscure character that nobody really knows, that was always white, and a black person comes in and takes up that character acting-wise, not mantle-wise, acting-wise in a film, then that black person has more of a chance to make that his own thing, to make that character's identity black forever. The only time they've done it successfully was with Nick Fury. Because why? Nick Fury, while he was a semi-popular character in the comics and in some cartoons, he was never iconic. He was never to the level of Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, Captain America. It was never to that level. And plus, Sam Jackson is Sam Jackson, you know? And plus, he was black in the comics for a short time as well in the Ultimate version. So Sam Jackson had the perfect opportunity to make that character his own. And ever since then, we've had a black Nick Fury. That was it done right, where it would work. But Captain America, especially Falcon, within the universe as well, taking up the mantle, is just not the same thing as Michael Clark Duncan acting as the Kingpin. First of all, the Kingpin's not that huge of a character. No pun intended. No irony intended. The Kingpin's not that big of a character that a black person can't switch it up and play the role, you know, especially if they look the part in terms of size and how imposing they can be, you know, and it was just fun. But eventually it went back to Vincent D'Onofrio. And I don't think it did anything for diversity, really, to have Michael Clark Duncan play the Kingpin. Because we got Vincent D'Onofrio, which is way, way better Kingpin than Michael Clark Duncan one. Probably because he feels more accurate to how he is in the comics, you know? That's probably a big part of it. Yeah, it's a very different thing entirely. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, what you think about the Tyrone Magnus's comparison to the Kingpin and Falcon not being a hand-me-down. I need to get more into the why it's a hand-me-down.
Damn, he's built like the Kingpin. You got what I'm saying? All of woke has done this, and it has.
He's making a good point here about woke, because what I will agree with Tyrone Magnus on is the fact that because of what's happened, how we've become basically the puppy that's been beaten and beaten by their master so many times, to the point where when the master raises his hand to cuddle us or to rub us nicely or to pet us, we've immediately gone defensive mode and aggression mode and you know, we want to get away from them mode, you know. So they might do diversity right for once, although I don't think this is an example of diversity being done right, but they might do diversity right and then we just reject it because we're so sick of all the woke crap. So I agree with that part of what Tyrone's saying about how anytime we see anything that can be perceived as DEI or woke, when it might not actually be the case, we're going to just get defensive on it and reject it, which is such a shame. And I blame these well-to-doers, virtue signalers for that, you know?
Changed people's perception of how these things are being done. And once we really got full into it, we realized, oh, it wasn't just him handing it to Sam. It's a different story twist. You did this because you wanted to tokenize Captain America. Thanks.
I will always reject Sam taking the mantle because he already had his own mantle. That's my thing. When War Machine became Iron Man, I don't think that's what led him to become War Machine. It was the opposite way around. It made sense. In the I can't remember when it happened, was it the 70s? I believe it was in the 70s. There was no War Machine at this time, but he had his best friend, James Rhodey Rhodes, right? Tony Stark was knocked out, he was injured, he couldn't be Iron Man anymore. And keep in mind, no one in the comics knew who Iron Man was. No one knew it was Tony Stark. So for some issues, Rhodey took up the Iron Man mantle and was Iron Man for a short time in the comics. Keep in mind, I don't believe he was War Machine at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong, you comic nerds out there, but I don't think he was War Machine. He was Iron Man. He was while Tony Stark was knocked out, he was KO'd, he was injured, whatever. Eventually, because he was so good as Iron Man, when Tony Stark was ready again, he took back his mantle and he was Iron Man. Rhodes ended up getting his own costume and he became War Machine. He had his own identity. He had his own personality. He had his own name, War Machine, you know? That is complete opposite of what happened with Falcon. And it's kind of crazy how Nerdrotic is, I don't know if it's intentional or unintentional, but he's somehow more concerned about Falcon's legacy than Tyrone Magnus is at this point, you know, because Tyrone, I get what he's trying to say, but he's like, I feel like Tyrone's not thinking of the bigger picture here where Falcon had his own identity that he could have made huge, you know, but apparently that identity is not good enough and he has to drop it so he can be Captain America. It should be a situation where it would make no sense for him to drop his identity as Falcon, or at least mash it up so he's American Falcon or Captain Falcon or something like that. That's the most you should do, you know? So yeah, Rhodes had his own identity, he became War Machine, and that's how it should run, you know? Maybe it's like a test run. You be that character for a while, then you become your own man. They did it right in the 70s. They're doing it wrong now, you know? That's how it should work for diversity and to bolster up a character to become his own thing. Like Miles Morales, he can be Spider-Man for a short time, but once Peter's back on the scene, he takes up his own name, his own identity, and becomes his own man. Because at the end of the day, these characters, especially if you're doing it for diversity reasons, will always stay in the main character's shadow forever until they can go out and be their own thing. Right now, Bucky feels more like his own man than Falcon does, when it should completely be the opposite, you know? But anyway, that's my thoughts on Captain America 4 is Doomed. If you liked it, give me a like, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And yeah, this could be an interesting one. Thanks for watching. Peace.